This study examines trajectories. By transcending determinisms, these individuals redefine excellence. Each analysis highlights how adversity becomes a lever to build autonomy. This values the strength of the spirit. Number 10. Nikki Kristo. Nikki Kristo embodies a paradigm shift in the media visibility industry by refusing the prism of biological vulnerability. Her professional approach consists of transforming an aesthetic singularity into a communication tool, shifting the cursor from pity to admiration. By integrating digital platforms and international fashion runways, she has exerted pressure on conventional beauty standards, forcing an ethical reevaluation of industrial norms. Her activism is not limited to visual representation, but extends to a claim of bodily sovereignty. She demonstrates that self-acceptance is not a passive act, but an active strategy of deconstructing prejudices. Nikki Kristo proves that identity is a construction capable of enduringly influencing collective perceptions and promoting inclusion based on competence and radiance rather than conformity. This modern icon uses her notoriety to build bridges toward a greater understanding of human diversity, proving that true freedom lies in the control of one's image. She remains a reference for anyone wishing to understand how to transform a difference into a competitive advantage in a rigid and selective sector. Number 9. Jay Walker. Jay Walker's experience constitutes a major reference regarding psychological adaptation, facing a sensory alteration occurring during adolescence. Confronted with sudden blindness, she knew how to pivot by reinvesting her intellectual and creative capacities in the field of writing. As an author and emeritus academic at only 21, she illustrates a form of cognitive resilience where the loss of a sense becomes the engine of an inner acuity. Her path underlines that the strategic vision of an existence does not depend on the ocular apparatus, but on a will for mental structuring oriented toward sharing and sustainable social impact. Through her pen, she dismantles the perceived limits of disability to propose a vision of excellence surpassing constraints. Jay Walker testifies to the human capacity to transform physical darkness into an inspiring clarity. Her academic and literary success proves that the mind possesses a plasticity capable of compensating for deficiencies through a depth of intellectual field. She stands as a model of perseverance, showing that sensory obstacles can be converted into opportunities for growth and professional development, thus opening new perspectives for those facing challenges in their own life paths. Number 8. Charlotte. Charlotte distinguishes herself by a life trajectory that defies traditional nosological frameworks and the aesthetic prejudices anchored in our era. Born with an atypical biological structure, she knew how to navigate with brilliance in a social environment often marked by an inclination toward superficial judgment. Her rise as an architect illustrates the primacy of the mental structure over the apparent physical form. By transforming her difference into a signature of autonomy, she succeeded in invalidating medical prognoses to impose herself as a figurehead of determination. Her brilliant professional success is proof that beauty and competence reside in the individual's capacity to conceive their own space of liberty. Charlotte's path is a lesson in tenacity, demonstrating that the greatness of an individual is measured by their capacity to remain the sovereign architect of their destiny. She knew how to transform heavy gazes into a force of propulsion, proving that excellence cannot be confined by measurements. By redefining the concepts of success and normality, she offers a perspective on the capacity for survival and flourishing. Her life is a testimony to the victory of will over fatality, reminding us that each individual possesses the power to design their own architectural reality, independent of the constraints of nature. Number 7. Anang. Anang illustrates an identity transformation initiated by an international humanitarian collaboration that allowed for the correction of a biological anomaly that hindered his development. His path, Passing from a cultural resignation in Cambodia to a surgical renaissance in Australia sheds light on the impact of medical advances on the global perception of self. Beyond the technical facial reconstruction, it was a true restructuring of his future perspectives that occurred during this intervention. Today, his life, stamped with serenity within a simple agricultural environment, bears witness to a success that is not measured by notoriety, but by regained psychological balance. Anang embodies the victory of medical innovation allied with a spiritual resilience beyond the norm, proving that the restoration of self-image is a fundamental step toward personal fulfillment. His history remains a plea for universal access to human dignity. This journey from the shadows to the light illustrates how strategic external support can liberate an individual's potential. Anang does not content himself with living. He radiates a gratitude that inspires his entourage, demonstrating that inner peace is the ultimate destination of any great ordeal. His physical transformation was merely the catalyst for a greater interior revolution, making him a symbol of hope and renewal for communities regardless of their physical conditions. Number 6. Alison. Within the global film industry, Alison imposes herself as a pioneer of diversity, using her atypical profile to break the codes of a standardized aesthetics. By transforming her distinctive traits into a competitive advantage, she knew how to impose a new visual and artistic grammar on screens. Her career is not the fruit of simple acceptance, but of a strategy aiming to valorize authenticity as a vector of universal emotion. By recycling her complex personal experiences in her acting, she offers representation to minorities often excluded from leading roles. Alison demonstrates that a physical singularity, when assumed with expertise, becomes a lever of influence capable of modifying collective perceptions. Her professional success confirms that true artistic authority emanates from the capacity to embrace one's identity, thus transforming social barriers into marks of greatness. She does not seek to adapt to the system. She forces the system to widen to include her reality, showing rare audacity in a competitive environment. By her mere presence, she validates the right to be different and proves that talent, when allied with a strong identity, surpasses all pre-established norms. Alison is the voice of those who are not seen, transforming her own trajectory into a manifesto for inclusion in the arts. Number 5. Kumari Rai. Kumari Rai embodies a struggle for the recognition of her health condition and the attainment of bodily autonomy facing a sometimes indifferent medical system. For 2 decades, she demonstrated exemplary perseverance, refusing diagnoses of fatality to pursue a quest for functional restoration. Her decision to undergo complex surgery at the age of 28 symbolizes an act of courage toward herself, placing her dignity above operative risks. This fighter's path highlights the necessity for each individual to be the main actor of their own health and rehabilitation. By managing to stand upright, Kumari Rai regained much more than a simple physical posture. She reconquered her legitimate place in the social sphere with assurance. Her story is a metaphor for the unshakable determination required to overcome institutional obstacles. She reminds us that the human body is the seat of a will that refuses to be broken by limitations. By taking back possession of her verticality, she also took back possession of her destiny, demonstrating that persistence is the key to opening doors one believed to be forever locked. Her quest for biological justice is an example of autonomy and faith in one's own healing capacities, marking a resounding victory of the spirit over the flesh. Number 4. Joseph Guiso. Joseph Guiso marked the public space with a symbolic approach aimed at celebrating loyalty and effective attachment beyond social conventions. By organizing a formal union with his pet, he sparked a collective reflection on the nature of unconditional bonds in a modern society. Although this act was perceived with diverse interpretive nuances, it highlights a firm will to valorize simple pleasures and gratitude. On the level of social communication, his initiative created a community impact, reminding us of the importance of benevolence and lightness in a world saturated with complexities. Joseph Guiso illustrates the capacity of an individual to assume their personal convictions with serenity, transforming a private gesture into a message on the importance of individual happiness and the recognition of fidelity. This unusual event allowed for the temporary breaking of social barriers through humor and tenderness, demonstrating that emotional commitment can take unexpected forms. Joe reminds us that the definition of happiness is strictly personal and that it must not be subject to the approval of the majority. His act of celebration is a declaration of effective independence, proving that loyalty deserves to be honored ostentatiously in an era where social isolation is becoming a concern. Number 3. Courtney. Courtney's path is a study in resilience, illustrating the capacity of a person to rebuild themselves after a brutal alteration of their physical integrity. Faced with a devastating event, she knew how to firmly reject the position of victim to adopt that of the builder of her own renewal. This process of purification through ordeal led her to a renaissance, where the scars of her past are no longer perceived as stigmas, but as medals of strength. Her transition toward a new, strong identity demonstrates that existential crises can be fertile soil for growth. Courtney embodies the spirit of the phoenix, proving that even in the debris of a previous life, it is possible to forge an existence of splendor. Her trajectory is a testimony to the human will to transcend suffering to attain fulfillment. She transformed her pain into wisdom, becoming a source of inspiration for those traversing periods of transition. Courtney shows that appearance is only a shell, and that the true essence of being is forged in the fire of adversity. By choosing to live despite traumas, she redefines beauty as an act of resistance and perseverance. Her life is proof that one can emerge from darkness with a light brighter than the one that inhabited us before the ordeal, making her resilience an art of living. Number 2. Jalisa and Jonathan. The partnership between Jalisa and Jonathan offers a perspective on emotional and intellectual interdependence as the foundation of a balanced relationship, independent of biological challenges. Jalisa, through her strength of character, refuses to let her physical structure limit her ambitions or her perception of herself in the public space. Jonathan, by adopting a posture of egalitarian companion rather than simple caregiver, validates a vision of love based on the recognition of essence. Together, they create a synergy that renders external prejudices obsolete, proving that the connection between two individuals rests on an affinity of spirit. Their relational dynamic is a model of integration and mutual respect, showing that physical barriers fade before an intelligence and a common passion for life. This duo illustrates that harmony is found in the capacity to valorize the inner greatness of the other without any reservation. They demonstrate that solidarity within a couple can overcome any barrier, thus erecting a rampart against discrimination. Their relationship is a laboratory of love, where one does not look at the other for their physical capacities, but for their unique contribution to shared happiness. Jalisa and Jonathan teach us that true human connection transcends physical frameworks to anchor itself in mutual admiration, making their union a shining example of emotional maturity and joint strength facing the outside world. Number 1, Monica. Monica is a remarkable case for international medical research. Afflicted with an extremely rare genetic pathology, she defied all prognoses by living more than 40 years. Her path embodies biological resilience and the power of the human will. Active and engaged, she transformed her status as a patient into a source of scientific and social inspiration. Monica proves that the genetic code is not a fatality, but a framework that one can surpass through action. Her story reminds us that personal determination can push back the limits of science and make life a true act of courage. Number 11. Moment of the unforeseen case. In a supermarket aisle, two strangers cross paths. One smiles and says, "Are you okay?" A conversation is born. They share their ordeals, their wounding looks, their daily battles. Their conditions have marked their lives, but also reinforced their courage. Then they part ways. Witnesses capture the instant, and the story goes viral. In conclusion, these profiles demonstrate that resilience is a skill. Each path validates that autonomy depends on circumstances or on the will. These narratives constitute a plea for a strong humanity.